Islam could not tolerate this victory after January 3, 2020, when he entered Iraq, accompanied by Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, deputy commander of Hashd al-Sha'bi of Iraq, and other friends, an advisory mission, the great and glorious general of Islam was murdered near Baghdad at the unjust order by the wicked Donald Trump, former president of the United States himself. After many years, sincere, brave struggle in the field of battle against the devils and villains of the world, and after many years of wishing of the martyrdom, he finally achieved this lofty status. His pure blood was shed at the hand of the most vicious people on the earth. Brothers and sisters, as you may have learned from recent news, last Wednesday, on the anniversary of his martyrdom and along the path of the pilgrims to his grave, terrorist groups unleashed two explosions, resulting in massacres of the hundreds of innocent people in the city of Kerman. This terrible act showed that these groups are not only Muslim, but also not human. And of course, they're supporting countries as well. Brothers and sisters, today another atrocity has been happening in Gaza by United States and Western country and occupying regime of Quds since October 7. Israel, along the Western country and United States, remains unresponsive to global calls for ceasefire and stop of massacre of the innocent and defenseless people of Palestine, including women and children. The bombing of the mosques, churches, and schools is yet another war crime unfolding in the world history, committed by the false elements of human rights, democracy, and peace.
Much time from here, we shall welcome the first speaker, who is a security analyst. In the name of Mr. Adib Sani, he is not a stranger to most of us. He is well known in this country in the circles of security analysis and discussing the security of the region and beyond. We do not need to introduce him much, as he is well known and his reputation precedes him. We welcome Mr. Adib Sani to discuss the role of General Qasem Soleimani in the security of the Middle East. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم. Is the video playing now? Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. First of all, let me thank you for taking off your time, despite your busy schedules, to be part of this very important occasion. But before I start, let me extend my sincerest condolence to the people of Iran for the terrorist attack that they suffered recently in the southern part of the country. But it is Iran, so who cares? We might not have that same coverage if it were in other places, but that is the harsh realities we have to contend with in today's world. Before I go further, Your Excellencies, let me correct a certain erroneous impression that is out there and that has taken precedence in the media. The fact that there seems to be a seeming tension or disunity between Shiites and Sunnis. I can tell you emphatically that there is no such thing between Shiites and Sunnis. All we see is a deliberate attempt to stoke disunity as a means of manipulation from other sources. And a lot of the incidents we have seen over the years is political in nature and not necessarily based on the ideologies that has been touted. And there's a deliberate, conscious attempt to sow that discord of division. And that is where we are today. See what is going on in Palestine. Palestinians are mostly what? Sunnis, right? But who have stepped up to the occasion to defend the Palestinian people in the face of the onslaught that they are going through right now? As we speak, about 24,000 Palestinians have been killed. About 10,000 of them are children. Over 6,000 are women. And close to another 10,000 are missing. And nobody is making any effort to find them. Recently, I was in a discussion with a diplomat, and I was talking about the fact that what is going on, what is happening to international law. He was like, shh, don't talk about international law. What is international law? There's nothing like international law. And based on his analytical explanation of international law, then I was suddenly awoken from a deep slumber.
Wasting much time and to be on schedule as we had already programmed to be. Our next speaker is our keynote speaker. He is not really needed to be introduced, as he is perhaps the most famous member of parliament in this country currently. A man whose analysis of our current situations and his projections of our future are mostly the go-to if you want to know the current affairs of our country and what needs to be done to alleviate our current woes. He is also a former teacher, and so he is in the best place to share what it is like to have this kind of a relationship of the shepherd and the sheep, because the general was without a doubt a shepherd, and his sheep were the people he was protecting. And the same relationship exists between a teacher and his students, just like the relationship exists between a father and his son or his child. Honorable Ibrahim Muhammad Murtada is the MP for Tamale Central, and he's here with us and he's our keynote speaker. Let's give him a very huge round of applause as he comes to us.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah alladhi tawada'a kulla shay'in bi'izzatihi. Walhamdulillah alladhi zalla kulla shay'in li'izzatihi. Walhamdulillah alladhi hadda'a kulla shay'in limulkihi. Walhamdulillah alladhi istaslama kulla shay'in liqudratihi. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran to Ghana, my senior comrade, Chrissy Pratt, my brother Adib, who did an excellent job, Imams, brothers and sisters, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My presence here is indeed an honor and at the same time a source of overwhelming pleasure. Because when you have a distinguished global personality who was barbarously murdered in a different country by a state or state-sponsored terror, and at the commemoration or the celebration of that barbarous murder, they found it convenient to murder hundreds of people again. My condolences goes not just to General Soleimani and his family and the 10 others who were barbarously murdered alongside him in Iraq. Our condolences goes to hundreds of people, peaceful citizens of Iran, who went to mourn and commemorate that murder, and they were again barbarously murdered by a terror. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that those who were murdered just a few days ago was once again sponsored, either directly or indirectly, by the very people who murdered General Soleimani in 2002, I guess. 2000. This murder was a clear violation of international law, or the so-called international law. It was also a clear violation of the sovereign rights of the people of Iraq. Every country has that right, a sovereign right recognized by the Geneva Convention of Diplomatic Relations, and that any attempt to incur in the territory of any country and perpetrate any crime of that sort is not only a violation of international law, it's a violation of ethic, principles, and humanity. Let me say that when I was informed that I was being invited to come and participate on this program, I didn't know I was going to be the keynote speaker. In fact, this morning, I spoke with my friend and I said, what role am I going to be playing? And he says that you are going to give a keynote speech on the role General Soleimani or Qasem Soleimani played in combating extremism, imperialism in the Middle East, or extremism, colonialism, and imperialism in the Middle East. I was wondering whether I had the capacity to speak on such huge topics, because colonialism itself is a huge topic of discourse. And international relations students will tell you that to deal with the subject colonialism itself is huge. Imperialism is yet another huge topic. And extremism, you don't even go there. But suffice it to say that I'll try a little to see if I can have a contextual analysis or definition of what constitutes colonialism and imperialism. For extremism, we can all have some understanding of what it constitutes. And I guess as Africans, people who have been subjugated before by the very people who are now telling us that we must imbibe their form of democracy, we have a first-hand experience of what constitutes colonialism. Because colonialism, in my opinion, is still with us. And when Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah declared that we are not seeking to be liberated politically, we are also seeking to be liberated economically. Now, people whose territories have been completely taken over by other people by the use of force can be described as colonialism. They forcefully take your territory and they take everything that is in it and dictates to you how that territory must run. That can be described as colonialism. So there's a use of force. That force could be military, it could be moral, it could be ethical, it could be economic. And imperialism is a policy where one state extends their authority to another state. And in this case, they may not necessarily physically take over your territory, but they extend their authority over your state. Either they do it directly, or they can do it as what Nkrumah described as neo-colonialists. They use your own people to determine how your society runs. And of course, extremism is with us every day. Extremism can be religious extremism, it can be political extremism, it can even be social extremism. Whatever the case is, any act that goes beyond the normal or the ideal standard of the act is extreme. Now, if I have been asked to come and have a discussion on these three key important things, I guess you would appreciate the difficulty with which I want to have this discussion standing there. But whatever the case is, I see my being here as a duty. And I would try my possibly best within the 20 minutes that is given to me to see if I can perhaps do a little justice to it in a matter of 10 to 15 minutes, considering the fact that we don't have much time. Now, we have been victims of colonialism before, but I guess my responsibility is not to look at global colonialism, but to look at colonialism, imperialism, and extremism in the Middle East. And I think that is where my speech is going to be focused on. How did General Soleimani confront colonialism and imperialism and extremism in the Middle East? And we all do know that Iran is also situated in the Middle East. You cannot have an appreciation of this without looking at the evolution of the problems and the crises we have. I listened to Adib, and my brother was talking about ISIS and others. Every single extremist act in the Middle East was not only encouraged by the United States of America and Europe. As a matter of fact, they were created, financed, motivated, and sometimes demonstrated in the Middle East by the United States of America and Europe. And you cannot have this extremism and the discussion without looking at the problem of Palestine. The other day, I had a TV program, and I said, it is not for nothing that we Muslims are profoundly emotionally attached to the issue of Palestine. It is because it is the home of one of the most important religious sites of Islam. Because the mosque of Al-Aqsa is one and the third most important place of worship for Muslims generally. And in fact, Muslims were directed initially to pray towards Jerusalem before Muslims were directed to pray towards the Kaaba. So it is very, very important. Now, how did they succeed in practicing what I describe as neo-colonialism in the Middle East? They do so by using the elite within those territories. They do so by using the media. And the only way they can achieve their set objectives is to make Iran appear as a demon, because they know in the heart of their hearts that the only country that can confront this, that has the intellectual capacity to appreciate their agenda ab initio, is Iran. And therefore, for them to be able to convince the other countries in the Middle East to agree with their narratives, they must present Iran as an evil state. They must present Iran as a state that hates the other states within the Middle East. Because if they did not do so, there was no way they would have succeeded in achieving the set objective they wanted to achieve. Many people do not know. Until the revolution in Iran, the leadership of Iran were in bed with America and the West, because they agree with the West just as many countries within the Middle East agrees with the West. And therefore, at that time, they didn't have any problem with them. But the moment the revolution sets in and began to question the dealings Iran had with the West, that was when Iran became enemy number one of the West. Other than that, Iran was not an enemy. Iran was a bosom friend to America, because the royal family that has the family and the heritage right to govern over the territory of Iran, which was in bed with the West, they were comfortable with it. But the moment the revolution set in and took over the reins of that country and began asking questions about the dealings and the motive of the West, particularly in America, in Iran, that was when Iran became an enemy number one to the United States of America and to the European countries. So let's get this very clear. Now, having used the media, at a point in time, they also use economic influence. And that economic influence, they need your money, they need your resources, but they come and appear to be providing you something that you lack. and therefore you want to be associated, you want to be identified as a friend to the West. If you want to associate with us, if you want to be identified with us, then you must do that which we want you to do. And that is one way by which they succeeded in convincing many countries in the Middle East to agree with their position. Now the question we ask, what role does General Soleimani and many other martyrs who have been barbarously murdered, directly or indirectly, by weapons and finances provided by the United States of America, the intelligence provided by the United States of America and Europe, what was their crime? They never killed anybody. They never subjugated anybody. But they understood clearly the agenda of the West and the Middle East. And therefore, a general of reputable standing and military training was not only intelligent, was not only compassionate, was not only understanding, but he was a critical thinker.
On our agenda is the final speech, which I have decided not to title, and I have decided not to give any name to. I've decided not to give any topic to, because the man who is coming to discuss this is a school of thought of his own self in this regard. He is our only comrade, Kwesi Pratt Jr. Let's welcome him to give a request.
Dear friends, we are here today not to express solidarity with Iran. We are not here today to do things for other people. We are here today to emphasize the point that no force on earth can stop any people in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, and throughout the world from asserting themselves and pursuing their own interests. The assassination of General Soleimani and his compatriots did not happen in isolation. You remember that in Ghana, on February 24, 1966, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America overthrew the government of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. You would remember that Patrice Lumumba of the Congo was also overthrown. He was assassinated. They dissolved his body in acid and removed his front teeth as souvenir. You will remember that throughout the world, all those who represent the interest of the downtrodden, all those who stand for peace, are assassinated, they're imprisoned, all kinds of things happen to them, just like happened to General Soleimani. The point is that the forces of imperialism, headed by the United States of America, do not tolerate freedom for any people anywhere in the world. And many people have wondered why the genocide in Palestine is supported by the United States of America. Check the history of the United States of America. How did the United States of America come to be what it is today? People from Europe went to the United States of America and exterminated the Indian population. That is the history of the United States of America. In the United States of America, there's no respect for any other race apart from the white race. There's discrimination against the Chicanos, there's discrimination against Latinos, there's discrimination against black people, and so on. That is the nature of the United States of America. And we cannot be surprised by the fact that today, the weapons that are killing our brothers and sisters in Palestine are supplied by the United States of America. We cannot be surprised that today, that genocide is not just taking place in Gaza. It's taking place in the West Bank. Lebanon is under attack. Iraq is under attack. Iranian scientists are being assassinated. Everywhere in the free world where people stand up for justice, the United States and its allies are at work to sabotage our efforts. We can also not forget that indeed when we were fighting for national liberation, Israel was on the side of the colonialists. We cannot forget that when we were fighting against apartheid, Israel was on the side of apartheid against us. Today, your presence here is an indication that we would never give up this battle until final victory. Today, we make a solemn pledge that nothing will prevent the forces of progress and peace, the forces of justice, and the forces of true democracy from realizing our own objective. Whether they like it or not, Palestine will be free. Whether they like it or not, they will be driven out to the Golan Heights. Whether they like it or not, people everywhere in the world will come together, struggle, and win the battle for national liberation and true democracy. Whether they like it or not, we shall continue the struggle until we build a new world whose resources will be exploited in producing food for our people. Whether they like it or not, we shall build that new world without a bomb. We shall build that new world in which peoples of all religions will come together as brothers and sisters. We will build that new world, that new free world, which will provide food for children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade. Please, another round of applause for Comrade.
Incubation to now. All the Palestinian people know that because of the support of Qasem Soleimani, he started early to help the Palestinian people, and it is not something secret to know that plenty from the Palestinian people went to visit Iran, and there they teach them a lot of things about how to attack the Israeli soldiers and the settlers in Gaza at that time. From 1990, a lot of Palestinian people go in there, and the Iranian people teach them to do everything there. And when they back to Gaza, they start strong struggle against the Israelis. In this commemorate, I like to to pray for my God to bless him, and I pray he is in place better than our places, and in life better than our life. And we call it Shaheed, inshallah, in Al Jannah, inshallah. And we have very high dignity in Palestine because the helping and the support of Qasem Soleimani. Thank you so much.